Ever been inside a brewery and watched beer being made? It might surprise you to know that when you stay at Pillar Point RV Park, you're within walking distance of the only brewery on the coast from San Francisco to Santa Cruz. The brewery at Half Moon Bay Restaurant is famous for making dozens of unique beers right on location. We caught assistant brewmaster John Olson having lunch at the brewery bar.
This is John Olson. Yeah.
Hi, John. We're RV Dream New Radio.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt your lunch here.
It's all right.
So we're going to learn about your brewery. It's obviously a pretty heavy deal you got going here. You're the assistant brewer,
I'm the assistant brewer, yeah.
and how long have you been doing that?
I've been here for a little over 9 months.
9 months.
Still,
Where did you come
still
from?
relatively new. This is actually my first job in a brewery.
Oh, it is?
So yeah, I was living in the area for a little while, home brewing for a long time.
Oh, so
And,
you've been doing it as a home brewer.
Yeah.
How did you get started doing that?
Home brewing?
Yes.
I was I went to school in Boulder, Colorado, and they have a really good, really big microbrewery scene.
Yes.
So I started to get really into craft
Maybe the
beer.
biggest in the country there,
Right,
too,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
In Boulder.
And so I met some of my friends used to homebrew, and I kind of helped them out with that. And then when I moved out here and had enough space to do it, I bought my own homebrew kit and just started experimenting.
That's great. So you liked beer, you liked, did you go to school at Colorado?
I did, yeah.
What did you study there?
I studied English, actually, which has
Right,
nothing
well,
to do with beer.
that set you up.
Yeah.
At least the English beer, maybe that rubbed off on you a little bit.
Yeah, so that was just beer just became a hobby and a passion of mine. And I used to live right across the street here, and so I came in here for about a month straight and was just volunteering for free on my days off of my other job. And I started to get to know enough in the brewery to where they hired me part-time. And then started to get to know enough after that point to be a full-time employee.
So here, tell me, disagree or agree, brewing is both a science and an art.
I agree.
It is a science, but there's an art to it that makes it different, one beer to another.
Sure, yeah, and there's definitely an amount of creativity that goes into making a beer that maybe separates you from the rest of the pack, from the rest of the beers that are out there. Instead of doing something run of the mill, experimenting, doing kind of pushing the envelope. It's definitely a part of the craft brew movement.
How much do drinkers? How much influence do they have on you?
Oh, they have a decent amount of influence. We try to spend a lot of time out here talking to our regular customers, asking them how the beers are tasting, what they're looking for maybe a special that we might get to do. And we also try and pay attention to what other breweries are doing in the area as well.
Right. Well, this is a very unique place here, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
It's one of the very few in the whole coast, really, for that matter.
Yeah.
I think it is.
I think it's the only brewery on the coast from the city until you get down to Santa Cruz. So
right.
For about a 40-mile stretch or so, maybe even longer, we're the only brew pub.
The slow coast, as somebody called it the other day.
Yeah.
Very magic place we're in right now,
It
isn't it?
is, yeah.
Great. I've interrupted your lunch. Thank you
no.
very much, John.
All right.
Nice to meet you, and thanks for talking to
Nice
us
to
on
meet you
RV
too.
Dream.
Great.
Look at this. So how lucky are we to get to see this, huh? So what's going on here?
So right now I'm transferring a beer.
Transferring a beer?
Yeah, transferring a beer that is ready, that is fermented out, that's carbonated, that's clear, transferring it to a serving tank so it can be put on at the bar.
So in 60 seconds, can you tell me the chain of events that has to happen, or does it take a long time to tell me that story?
I can try and do it in 60.
Well, 2 minutes or 3.
All right. So our brewing process starts right here. This is the area that we call the mill. So
The mill?
Yeah.
Okay.
Beer is made from primarily 4 ingredients. It's going to be malted barley, water, yeast, and hops. So what we're going to do is grind up our barley, just based on whatever kind of beer that we're doing. We'll use different types of barley. We'll grind that up.
Oh, there's different types of barley?
Yeah. So there's...
As a kid growing up in Oklahoma, the only kind I knew was the kind that itched if you got it on your back.
Oh, yeah. So there's different kinds of malted barley. Like this is rye malt, for example. That's kind of a specialty malt. That's not going to be used very commonly. There's also Pilsner malts, caramel malts, wheat malts.
Oh, yeah.
So those are some of the different bags that we use.
Right.
We have on display there. So once we grind it up and shoot it up through the auger, careful.
Okay.
So once we grind up all of our malt and shoot it up through the auger, it gets held up in this grist case here.
Oh, wow.
And so all of our grain will sit there while we prepare the brew house area. And so After the grain has been sitting in there, we'll drop it down into what we call the mash tun.
Mash
Tun.
right?
And so I'll get up here on this platform with a big paddle, stir in all that grain that's dropping from the tank with hot water. That activates the enzymes in the malt to convert the starches into sugars. And so once that process is done, we'll filter our liquid that we've gathered from our grain into this brew kettle. We'll boil that liquid. We'll add our hops. And then when that boil is finished, we'll move it to a fermentation tank. We'll set the temperature on these tanks. They're all temperature controlled. We'll set the temperature that is appropriate for fermentation. We'll add our yeast.
Now we're looking at different mixtures, what's the difference between the tanks?
They're all the same. They just have different beers in them. So yeah, just based on what tank is open, we'll move the beer that
And how do you make a different beer? It's how much malt you put in?
Yeah, different types of malt, different types of
different
hops.
recipes.
Exactly, yeah.
Dark beer, light beer.
Yeah, just like making a vanilla cake or a chocolate cake. Just different recipes.
Right.
So yeah, we'll get the beer in here. We'll add our yeast. It'll ferment in anywhere from 3 days to a couple weeks, and we will pull the yeast off of the beer to get nice clear beer, and then we'll transfer it to our serving tanks. And that's where the beer comes from when you're drinking it at the bar.
Okay, so how do you transfer it? Through these?
Yeah, through this pump that we're using right here.
Right, okay. And then those go into those.
Well, not necessarily. So the beers that you get at the bar come right out of these tanks. The kegs are just for sale outside.
You mean, is this connected to the bar?
It is, yeah.
Oh, how
There's
cool.
a line that goes through the back wall there and goes to the taps.
So there'll never be a time when we come here that we go, we're out of beer.
Never.
Never.
Might be out of one or two, but we'll never be out of all of them.
Right. And each one has its own separate beer,
Yep.
and then it's piped into the bar, and then whichever one they order.
Yep.
And then do you bottle? Or you have some beers that you bottle as well?
We do. We bottle our Maverick Amber Ale, our Princeton by the Sea IPA, and right now we have a bottling of our Big Wave Ale, which is a light ale. And for our ale election, we're bottling our Pale Ale, both for our Obama beer and our Republican candidate.
What's the difference between an ale and a beer?
A beer is an ale. A beer can be either a lager or an ale. An ale is basically a beer that uses ale. There's two different kinds of yeast. So you use an ale yeast to brew an ale. You'll ferment it at warmer temperatures. A lager, you would use a lager yeast and ferment it at colder temperatures.
Right. So this is just like you did at home, except bigger.
Yep.
Kind of the same principle,
Yeah.
right?
I'll show you
That's
some
great.
hops. These are Summit hops. We use these in our IPA. Very pungent aroma.
Yes. That's nice aroma, though.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, me too.
I like barley, too. I like the smell of barley.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
What an operation. So you spend most of your time back here.
Yeah. Pretty much all my time, yeah.
And is it busy? Are you constantly mixing stuff? You're pretty busy back here?
Yeah, we've got two of us in here. The brewmaster's out of town right now, but we've got two of us in here pretty much 40 hours a week. And any day that we're not brewing, we're doing what I'm doing now, transferring beers, cleaning kegs, filling kegs, bottling, cleaning tanks. So there's always stuff to do.
So there's, like we were talking about science and art.
Mm-hmm.
So the science is, here's all the ingredients.
Right.
And what's the art part of it, which is
The
how
art-
long you leave it in, how...
Well, yeah, the art part of it, I would say, is being able to understand the different phases of beer, detect when it's ready, not let it ferment too long, not let it ferment too short, make sure that you're adding the right amount of ingredients, but also there's a certain element of creativity that comes into play when we're creating our specials. Like I said, we'll kind of bounce ideas off each other, pay attention to what customers are saying, what other breweries are doing in the area, and we'll try and come up with something creative and new and unique, and hopefully everyone enjoys
And
it.
that's fun.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
So you're constantly sampling, little
yeah.
taste here, and checking it out. how
Yeah,
it
yeah.
tastes and so
Quality
on.
control, making sure everything is tasting the way that it should, and that the temperature is right, the carbonation is right, and everything like that. Yeah.
Right, and you must go other places too and sample other beers from
Yeah.
different places and learn about what you like or don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
part
what I
of
was
it,
saying.
too.
That's kind of where a lot of our ideas might come from, is staying on top of what other breweries in the area are doing and seeing what we like, what we don't like, different trends that are happening in the industry, and we'll try and come back here and create something that's all our own.
So if you were over at my house for a party and I said, You want a Coors Light? You'd go, no thanks.
Well, I'm not a beer discriminator. I'll drink any beer. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I definitely prefer the kind of beers that we make here, craft beers, nicer beers.
But it's just got to be like water though after you do all this.
Yeah, it definitely has a different flavor. Not as enjoyable, but anyone that's going to offer me a beer, I won't turn it down.
Gotcha. Thank you, John. Thanks.
Yeah.
After our tour, we visited with a family from New England who were on their way to Maui, but came over to the brewery for lunch when they had some time between flights. We asked them to tell us about the brewery beer samples.
But we started with a tasting, a flight of beers, so that we could then choose the one we wanted to get.
Which was a great concept.
Tell us about that, because we didn't do that.
Mavericks Amber.
Well, we ended up choosing the amber, but
Mavericks Amber is the best, huh?
Well, I got the chocolate
That's what
stout.
you like
That's
the
what I
best.
like. I got the chocolate stout. Yeah. The Sandy Beach tasted like a Sandy Beach, so we weren't. But it's with banana.
It's not
Now
like
that they
didn't
told
warn
me
you.
banana,
Yeah,
I could
and-
tell the banana.
And
Wow.
this one here tasted like flowers, and then this one here is a Scotch ale.
Yeah.
So which one did you like the most? The best?
Well, I like the Scotch ale, and I did like this one. I don't know what it's called, and then
It's a special.
Yeah, it's a special.
We don't know. It's a mystery. But all in all, this is not pub food. This is a serious someone who prides himself in their food. Someone who puts together flavors and local and amongst
It's special,
their
isn't
own
it?
environment. Yeah, no. This was a great. We said we scored coming here.
I like the root beer floats.
Yeah, there's a man after my own heart right there.